Hope everyone's having a good evening. Thank you so much for coming to the opening reception and artist talks. All right, from Moons to Wonder. So before we begin, I would like to invite Holly Fisher up to talk a little about the AIR program.
So, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I just want to give you a little background on the Artist in Residency program. We're in our 8th year. We love this program so much. It is an opportunity for alums who have graduated with an art degree to apply to come back and spend a semester building a portfolio of work that they can use to apply to grad school with or to launch a professional career with, out assignments where there's more self-directed. And in addition to that, they're paired with a mentor who they shadow. So Niza, my beautiful, wonderful artist in resident, spent time in the sculpture studio and was a fantastic student teacher. And in addition to that, skills can be gained in their area of expertise, like how to manage a studio, how to order supplies. So we're trying to give them a broader skill set that will help them in their professional development. And there's a really nice exchange between the current students and the returning alums. Thank you all for being part of the work.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure Niza does too. Just a little bit about me. I am from Nashville, North Carolina, and I moved here after I got accepted to Meredith. And then I graduated in May of 2025 of last year. My artwork is mixed media based, and it often explores painting and fiber additions. Sometimes I like to dabble in a few other things, but painting and fibers are my focus. My concepts often include my faith, nature, and then personal reflection through experiences I encounter on a daily basis. When I came into my residency, I had a lot of goals for myself, not only artistically speaking, but also personally. I wanted to spread and strengthen my faith and also opening the floor to conversations about faith. Sometimes it's challenging to get out there and really talk about your faith openly. So stepping out of your comfort zone and being willing to do that can make a lot of change. Artistically speaking, I wanted to break away from the confinement of your typical canvases. So you'll often see square and rectangle canvases, and I wanted to break away and expand beyond those boundaries. I also wanted to experiment more with dyes. I have taken 2 fibers classes my time here at Meredith, and I have used them in many ways, but never in a way where I'm painting with them. And so using those techniques in my residency was a good way for me to expand more on that. And then also improving and challenging myself with unraveling and tearing the canvases. When it comes to inspiration for my entire artist in residency, it directly pulls from the piece you see me standing beside in the center. This was the first piece where I experimented with unraveling of the canvas. When I was doing it this time, though, I was more tight with it. I still kept those straight lines. I didn't tear anything. I was always cutting and very carefully removing fibers as I was going. And I wanted to completely break away from that and be a little more rough with it, I guess. Inspiration also comes from my faith. So in the bottom, you can see I'm swaddled up in a towel, freezing my butt off because I got baptized outside in the fall and it was really cold. And then nature. So these are my exact reference photos that I used for these pieces. My first pieces, Seasons of Faith series, it consists of 3 pieces: the cardinal, the butterfly, and the fireflies. And I could really talk about this for way too long, so I broke it down into quick concepts. So for the cardinal, it often is seen as a messenger, more common with perseverance and hope and resilience. And during this season of my life, I was going through a lot of major life changes all at once. And so when cardinals started appearing in my life a ridiculous amount, I was honestly to the point where I was annoyed with it. I was like, this is enough. I'm done. So I ended up researching it and I learned a lot of things. And I took it as my sign to continue moving forward and as a sign that I'm on my right path and that I just need to keep pushing. So the cardinal is a way of me saying that I'm here and I'm ready to go and dive back into my faith. Now, the butterfly is a bit more personal, so I'm not going to dive too far into it, but I will say it is another stepping stone where I really grab onto my faith and I'm not just stepping anymore, I'm flying into it. The fireflies, so during mating season, fireflies flash in synchronized, perfectly timed patterns. And Isaiah 60:22 from the scripture, at the right time, the Lord, will make it happen. To me, that just stood so perfectly in my life to where I was at that time because I was having a hard time with patience and trusting the plan that was set out for me. And so at that season in my life, Isaiah 60:22 and the mating season for fireflies stuck really heavily, and I took that and I ran with it. So the process for these pieces is pretty much the same for each piece. I used raw canvases and I laid down water, and then I would go in with the fabric dye. The water helped it absorb much more easily into the fabric. So I not only was not wasting as much time, but I was using less fabric dye. And during this process, I was getting down my background colors, laying out the main points of the pieces, and also experimenting with what I could do with the fabric dye beyond what I've already done in the past. So here is each piece in that beginning stage. The butterfly was very easy because it was just yellow. And then the grass and the weeds for the fireflies, and then the tree for the cardinal. It was also during this stage when I realized when I would pin them up that gravity was doing a great job of pulling all of the dye downward. And it reminded me of the way that Christ bleeds into my life in the same way that the fabric dye is bleeding into the rest of the canvases. And making that connection made me want it even more. So I began spraying the pieces with water even after they were dry. The next step in the process was laying out my subjects and also painting them in with acrylic paint. This allowed me to have more control of what I was doing and also making sure that my details were where I wanted them to be, especially when it came to the butterfly and being symmetrical with it. During this stage, I also would go in and add more drips with watered down paint just to enhance the visuals of the bleeding a little bit more. And then the part that I struggled with the most was actually breaking away from that rectangle shape. Growing up, doing that your whole life, it can be really difficult to finally break away from that. And this exhibition definitely pushed that into me. And now that I've broken away from it, I really enjoy the way the pieces have become. And I don't know if I'll go back to rectangles anymore. But I use a lot of different tools. I use X-Acto knives, scissors, and then hard wire brushes and even safety needles. When I originally started, I did start neat and tight like I did in the same pieces before. And after a few critiques, I learned that I needed to just get in there and rip it up. So that's what I did. And it actually worked out in my favor. And these are the three pieces side by side, little close-ups. And then the other pieces that are hanging on the other side of the wall against the window, they weren't originally planned to be in this exhibition, but while I'm reading my Bible, I will highlight and tab scriptures that I want to go back and draw. And this was one of those scriptures, and it resonated deeply with what I was already portraying in the other three pieces. And I thought that having them in the same space could really bring it all together. So Isaiah 58:11, you will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. For me, that hit right to my heart because I was already going through a lot of things. And hearing that you're never going to stop growing can really make you think. And so the process for this one was fairly similar to those before. I went in with the same technique of watering wetting the canvases or the fabric and then going in with dye. Only this time, instead of working on a tabletop, I instead took the fabric and pinned it all the way to the top of the wall so that when I was applying the dyes, they would run down as if it was rain falling down a window. And then I transitioned from the blue to the green and then roots at the bottom. When it came to putting the flowers onto the fabric, I went back to a technique that I learned before I studied abroad, and it's called hammer dyeing. I don't know, is it actually called that? Does it have a name? What is it?
Eco printing.
Eco printing. I call it hammer dyeing. You pretty much go, it is more fun. You pretty much go out, pick flowers or vines or pretty much anything you can find out in nature, and you take a hammer to it. And the print of the flower will transfer over onto your fabric. It's a lot of fun and it's kind of therapeutic, but it's how I got most of the prints of the flowers onto the fabric. And I also went in and did some with wax and even just hand drawn some as well. When it came to installing the pieces, all of them, it was quite the challenge. A lot of fishing line and a lot of wire for stability. I used gesso on the back of the canvases that helped strengthen it to help stay up in its upright form. And then I used a grommet to create little holes on the top of these banners and just use little suction cups that made it pretty easy. Once I'm done here, I will be moving to Charlotte to pursue further opportunities in arts administration. Fingers crossed for me, but that's all I have for you guys. Thank you.
It's a little bit long, so hang there for me. So my name is Niza Menez, and I'm really thankful for everyone being here with us tonight. And I did the artist in residency with Professor Holly Fisher. And starting off a little bit about myself is that I'm an artist from Charlotte, North Carolina. So see you soon. And I finished my degree in May 2025 with a bachelor's in studio arts. And I mostly focus on the realm of 3D artwork, such as ceramics, sculpture, with mixed media. I enjoy creating pieces that focus on the unseen of things, such as emotion and identity. Some of my main goals for this residency was to foster connection through my work that transform invisible experiences into actual 3D forms, and to reclaim materials from my early practice and push them towards a new, better, and stronger concepts, and to get back to the Meredith art community that shaped my artistic passion. For my overall concept, these artworks give form to the unseen weight of generational trauma that passes through family line and memory. Drawing from my Mexican heritage, I explore how childhood experiences and inherited fears often shape identity by revealing layers of cultural transmission, healing, and reclaimed strength. And my work transforms these wounds into forms by capturing the pain and the quiet resilience of healing through generations. For my first project, I named this The Three Who Witness, and it's a group of 3 non-functional ceramic vessels that represent my siblings in an abstractive way. And I did this through glass eyes, spikes, and dripping textures. I explore how we observe, protect, and respond to one another. The forms act as an emotional landscape, showing the vulnerability, tension, and defense that is shaped and shared by our memories together and our family bonds. And for this process, I started off with just doing what I love the most, which is coiling. It's so much easier to create the forms that I had planned out in my head. So this is how it came out with the basic form. And since I wanted two of the smaller vessels to sort of melt, have a melting effect or sort of melt into the surface, I had to cut those off. And that's when I started adding all the textures that would unify the entire artwork together. And that included the spikes and melting and dripping effects and the eyes. And that's how it looked all cleaned up. And this is when I decided to incorporate the glass eyes, sort of add a different material and learn more about it. And I talked to Lisa about this, and she taught me how to make the eye sockets for the eyes. And that's how it came after it was bisqued. And for the glazing, this was very experimental. I didn't know what I was doing, but after a lot of research, I made sure that the colors didn't really turn into this muddy look and really blend in together to create this marble and sort of oil spill effect that I wanted to create. But before that, I had to make sure I was doing the eyes correctly. So I did this thing that I believe is called glass casting. And I started off with the test tile beforehand since I have experience before, but it wasn't as profound as now. So I created the two molds that were needed. First the test tile, and then on the top image here, you'll see the test tiles that I have. And since I wrote all the ways that I layered it, I just tried out whichever I liked the most and then just put it into the main mold. And once it was out, I grabbed the eye and literally just placed it into the eye socket. And I grouted it so it would stay in place and would not fall out because I don't want that to happen. And here is a more detailed look into all the pieces. I really love how, even though it was very experimental, it all came out and fit together just in a piece. And the glazing especially is exactly what I wanted. And the eyes, beautiful, to be honest. This really made me want to like do more glass casting. For my second project, I named this Pin by Expectation, which shifts into sculpture and mixed media. I center on the experience of being a target from both personal trauma and cultural expectations. The red target is there with beads, yarn, hot glue, and wax to suggest vulnerability, the weight in accumulation, which over time reflects how these experiences often leave psychological marks on us while we continue to endure from it. And this was the best, most fun process I've had in a while, especially since I had already experienced this in sculpture class with Holly. And I actually want to create something bigger and more obviously better. So I just grabbed a sheet of metal and sketched out how I wanted to create the base of this piece. And once I had created that piece, I had to make the target that will go on top of it. So I sketched it out, made sure that I used a thin wire that was easily, I was able to bend and manipulate, I mean. And then I spray painted. However, I didn't like how dark it looked. So I went with acrylics and just painted it red so it will look bright and will match with the yarn and the beads that I chose. Once that was drying, I started off with the beads and then I attached those as the first layer. And then I added the yarn on top. And since I had to put the wax on it, the wax was kind of breaking off. So I decided to incorporate hot glue, which was colored. So when it came out, it was already red. And I just added a bunch of details where you could see more zoomed in, like in the background that kind of looks like shotgun wounds. For my first project, I named this Suffocation, and I returned back to ceramics to explore the tension between growth and the limits imposed by mental and physical health. The compressed form reflects internal pressure and expectations to improve even when resources are low. And this work was a form of meditation to me since it emphasizes on resilience and self-compassion. And for this process, I went back to doing coils. And since I wanted to create a really difficult form, I had to wait a lot of time to let this piece dry. But once that was completed, I smoothed it out and started picking out where I wanted to cut out for the holes. And once that was done, I smooth it out since I wanted to create that bubble cracking effect. I had to do this other method I never tried before. And I did these slabs and used a beige underglaze over it. And when I was testing it, when I pushed out the slab with the glaze already on it, it created this cracking effect, which you can see closer here. And was something I really love. And that's when I just started doing it and putting it inside the base basically and pushing it out to create that effect. And after that, when it was bisqued, I went over it with, again, trying to layer a glaze. And the glaze that I tried was seaweed on the bottom, and then on top of it was Nova. And Nova has a crystal-like effect, and that's something that I really wanted it for this piece. And here you can see closer or just in person. It's pretty hard to notice, but you can see those crystals that I'm talking about that I really like. Finally, for my fourth piece, I named this The Edge of Becoming. And this one where explores the uncertainty that comes from fear and transformation. I did this by experiment with materials I rarely use, like fabrics and acrylics. I eroded the surface that reflects hesitation and anxiety while also pointing towards possibility. It shows the courage it requires to embrace growth and the beauty that can emerge from what initially feels as fragile or unstable. And again, I had to do a lot of research for this one because I'm not a professional like Paige, but I just drifted some fabric and I searched how I could use rust to be transferred into the fabric. So I created the solution where it was fairly easy white vinegar and water. And then I just let it stay submerged for 2 days. And when I was done, to make sure that the print wouldn't come out, I had to make another solution that was just salt and hot water and hand washed all of them. And then that's how it came out at the end. And since most of my artwork has like red or like green and blue tints color, I went and used acrylics to dye the fabric. And that's when I started doing the base. And since I didn't want to just place the fabric on top of it and just let it do its thing, I decided to shred it and just rip it, like literally by hand, just ripping it apart and cutting in pieces where I thought needed it the most. And then that's when I started hanging it and just playing around with it. And that's how it ended up being installed outside. And this experience was so incredible and fun and anxiety, even with some up and downs I had during like the processes. But I love building new connections and supporting students by sharing what I learned and offering encouragement along the way, especially as I had a similar experience when I was an undergrad student with other artists and residency students. So this really, really helped me pursue my career that I really now want to turn into a profession. And my next step is to obviously continue being an artist, but in a more confident and professional way. And this encouraged me to engage more with our community especially back in Charlotte, where I haven't taken the time to really explore my options. And I'm also looking forward to the future residencies there, exhibitions, and collaborations. Thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoys the exhibition. Thank you so much for coming. If y'all want to talk to me about my artwork, I'll be out then.